Part 2 of the End of a Species discussion on the Rise of Skywalker. Fuck GameStop.
Like, over, and we've talked about it before, over the course of this trilogy, there's been a lot of hate and contention from a lot of people, and, like, I was just enjoying Star Wars being Star Wars from a lot, but, like, 8 threw me for a loop because there was a lot of things that happened that I had to come to terms with, just as filmmaking happens. But it is what it is. The only thing I'm still coming to terms with is, like, I don't feel that Luke necessarily behaved the way Luke would have behaved, and I've heard all of the sides to it. I've heard a lot of the sides, and it's still the one of the hard ones for me to come to terms with. And I've almost teetered onto the other a couple of times. But whatever.
I've watched your struggle with this for a while, and it makes sense. It makes sense that you have a character that you've lived and died with for ages. And it's different from like a comic book. Like, comic book characters almost get saturated with how much, like, if you're a Spider-Man fan, there's like 7, 8, 9 different versions of Spider-Man. Some good, some bad, and the struggle is there. But with Luke, there's one continuity for Luke.
Yeah.
And so if you followed that continuity from episode 3, where he was born, to episode 6, where, he was part of vanquishing the Emperor, etc., you have this image of where that line is going. Like, you draw a line, starting from Tatooine and buying 2 droids to
with your uncle, and like
blowing up the first Death Star.
And he was even he was just wanting to get off that planet. He was ready to go sign up and join the Empire because, like, they would take him off that planet, kind of like Han got off Corellia by signing up with the Empire. He was about ready to do the same thing, but he just happened to fall into the rebellion and got into that part, so that was just better for him. But yeah, he's following this journey with the Death Star.
And when you see a line and you think, oh, it's headed here, it's hard to picture that line bending in a different direction.
Yeah. It right-angled almost for me.
Yeah. And so maybe we need more context into what happened between episode 6 and episode 7 as far as the Skywalker twins are concerned. Like, we got flashes of it, small flashes in Rise of Skywalker, without a lot of context. It's just like training and, montages now that they know that they can make people young through CGI. It was good.
I would almost like to see it in either 1, a book, or 2, a video game.
I think I would prefer it in a book, just so that you're just giving us what happened.
Yeah.
If it was a game, it would have to be something like massively on rails, so that we don't go.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Jedi Fallen Order was kind of like the story. Like, you didn't get like a choice of how you wanted to behave.
Yeah.
So, like, if they did it even relatively like that, I would be all right with it. But, yeah, it'd be a more choiceless kind of a thing, and more of just like fighting through. The story.
You might be onto something, because if you take Jedi Fallen Order and instead of making it Cal Kestis, you make it like the adventures of Luke Skywalker between Return of the Jedi
6 and 7, yeah,
and Force Awakens.
Maybe a little post Battlefront 2.
Well, you can even satisfy woke culture by saying, well, you can be Luke or you can be Leia. Like, you have a built-in, male-female contingent.
Yeah. And maybe you do it kind of like Resident Evil 2, where, like, you play it this one as Luke, and it works this way. And if you play it as Leia, she's got, like, her own, like, kind of arc, but, like, they kind of crisscross.
Yeah. They did a similar thing in, well, not similar and not as well, in Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Yeah.
Where you had the 2 different...
Never played it, but sure.
Well, it was the 2 different protagonists, and they were also
Male, female.
Male, female,
But they
and
were brother,
twins.
sister. Oh, were they twins too?
I believe so.
I thought they were just brother and sister. But yeah, sure. Why not? And like just your stories kind of crisscross and you can interact with the next person. And, like you could have something like a decision you make as Luke affects what decision you can make as Leia. Like,
Yeah.
You, like if you like in Resident Evil 2, like there's a locker you come to and you can take both of the items in there, or you can take one and then leave the other one for the other person. And like you can affect like, oh, Luke went this way to handle this objective, so Leia now has to go this way to handle this objective.
EA, if you're listening, this one's free. If you make this video game now, if you want to drop off a check, I won't.
Yeah,
like.
we won't. Yeah, we won't say no to that.
I won't say no. I'll say no to a check from anybody else.
If we get a check from EA, EA's got money to burn.
Yeah.
If we get a check from EA,
You know who doesn't? You know who doesn't? Hilariously,
GameStop.
fuck GameStop, but they really don't have money to burn. So
No.
like, if you guys decide to like make a video game, I don't think you could afford making a video game, but
Yeah.
so you don't have to pay me anything because you don't have money.
But I feel that that Episode 8 would benefit from an Adventures of Luke Skywalker. Episode 9, I think, is good standing on its own, and we would need. I know there's a book, I haven't read it, but that happens between 8 and 9. I don't know if it governs this stuff with the Emperor or not, but I feel that this was a fitting conclusion to 7 through 9. And I'm still coming to terms with it for being a conclusion.
You know what? It's actually a
one.
good conclusion. Instead of if you look at it 1 through 9, instead of looking at it as a conclusion to the Skywalker saga, it's a good conclusion to the Palpatine saga.
Yeah.
Like if you look at
We can't.
Senator Palpatine,
You can't bring him back after this. This has got to be the end.
Yeah, this is a wrap for Sheev, and
which is it's Emperor Palpatine's first name. It's never mentioned in any of the movies, but it's like that's what his name is. Sheev Palpatine.
yeah, if you write me, I'm gonna make fun of you on our next. Like I have the mic, so yeah, that's his first name. But just the fact that you go from senator hiding in plain sight all this time to chancellor to emperor to dead emperor to weird ghost in the background puppet master, and then he's gone.
And then he's gone. So I'm coming to terms with it for a 1 through 9, which is good. Like it's nice to think on things sometimes. Have some quiet moments. And play out, like make connections in your head. So it's why a lot of the fun stuff of like making that connection of like what Anakin said of like keeping people from dying and then like finding Ben finishes his work and stuff.
Yeah.
It's this cross saga kind of thing. But I feel that the movie was justice for a lot of characters, and I think it was very well done. I enjoyed the hell of it. So I cried a lot through some stuff. So
it was well done. It gave
not a lot. Like I'm not crying a lot, but like you emotionally tear up. It's like you grew up with these characters. You feel like they're living these adventures with them. You've played them in video games and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I just want to justify my tears. That's all.
no and no. It's if anybody is a Star Wars fan and watched this movie and you didn't have moments where you were like.
When Chewie, like when I thought Chewie was dead, and I'm like, they're just killing off people. I'm like Lando's gonna die next. I'm like, and like Chewie's dead. I'm like, they fucking killed Chewie. God
Unceremoniously.
Yeah, like God damn you. And then they brought him back. And I'm like, oh, but like, yeah, like when I saw that ship blow up, I was like, it's like it's
Not like this.
Yeah, not like that. Oh man. And then like my hatred, like my dark side was rising up for Rey during that point. And I'm like, you killed Chewbacca, you bitch.
I don't give a fuck how many rocks you move.
Save what?
Like Jesus.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's I'm happy. I'm happy with it. I was happy with it. I don't know why a lot of people like hate on this movie for so much.
You know what
like
it is?
You have to get past a lot of like little things, like little earth problems of like the beginning pacing being kind of like breakneck of like bounce, 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 bounce. I'm like, they're trying to get you to some meat of some story.
But here's the thing, and this is outside of just people being haters. This is more of how people consume content, and when people feel invested in something and they feel a bit of ownership to it. I feel like some people look at a movie and they see the movie that they thought they were going to get, or the movie that they themselves would have made, or the movie that they wanted to see, instead of the movie that's in front of them. And so sometimes that happens. That happens a lot with action movies, like especially movies that are just dumb action movies. And by that, I don't mean that they're stupid. I just mean that they are, first and foremost, like, you have your Transporters and your Takens, where we don't have to worry too much about how thin the plot is. It's an excuse to blow stuff up.
Yeah. Expendables is that way. It's
Yeah.
like we have to go and save
How many
the
action
hostages.
heroes can we put in to say their catchphrase, shoot something, and then come off frame?
Yeah.
And when you go to see that, I think you've mentioned your the Meg story. Like,
I've mentioned it a couple of times.
You know what movie you're going to get, so
Yeah.
you enjoy it on that level.
Yeah.
And-
You adjust your viewing experience. Like, not everything that you're going to walk into is Schindler's List or, E.T. or Titanic or like, it's not going to be like great emotional, like, drama, whatever. Like, sometimes a movie is like just a movie,
But with Star Wars, it's different, because with Star Wars, that movie, like Rise of Skywalker, had a ton of great action beats, a ton of great comedy that wasn't gratuitous, a ton of great emotional moments, closed out an entire saga. And I think with Star Wars, there's so many chefs in the audience
that are telling you how to cook your
yeah,
movie.
and I feel like there's one chef that paid $6 billion to make this fucking stew,
Yeah.
right? And that's the one that decides. Like, if you ask 100 different people, what would you have done with 7, 8, and 9 before 7, 8, and 9 came out, you would have gotten probably 95, 96 different ideas, maybe even like over 100. Who knows? Everybody would have had a way that they would have gone with it. And so when you sit down and watch episode 7, and then you sit down and watch episode 8, and then you sit down and watch episode 9, this is the view of this team.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to go on. You have to erase, it's almost like unlearn what you have learned. Erase what you expected to happen. Erase what you expected for these characters to have done, and just accept that this is the story they're telling you. And I think what happens with a lot of the hate is, and I see it. I see where people go, it would have been great if this had happened. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of how you tell the story or what story you tell. It's a matter of how is it presented, the story that you are telling. And this story made sense. There were some like, I agree with you that between 7 going into 8 and going into 9, there are 3 different feels.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are purists, if you look at episode 4, like if you go from A New Hope to Empire, completely different feel. From Empire to Return of the Jedi, worlds apart in tone, worlds apart in presentation. Even the music kind of has different beats to it, where the same thing happens with the prequels. Episode 1 has a specific feel to it. Episode 2 is completely different. Episode 3 just goes off the rails. But, and I think some people remember these movies, and I don't want to say with rose-colored glasses, because there's nothing wrong with doing it, but they think everything was so uniform when it wasn't. And there's a method to that madness.
I would agree with that. But I also know that 1, 2, 3, all were filmed and responded and did things differently. They were all helmed primarily by one person who wrote the story and did everything and knew, like, at the beginning of one, he knew where he wanted to go, and he knew, like, at the end of 3, like, I got to get to here. And then the same thing with 4 even more so. I'm starting it here. I have this great big story that's too big for one movie, so we're going to cut it here. And then, like, if I get more, I get more. And then 4, 5, and 6, like, even though tones and things change, it's all helmed by one guy.
Well,
who it's his
5
brainchild.
5 was written and directed by... I mean, I know there's... Don't get me wrong. George Lucas was the only person who's like... If he
had
gone up to Irvin Kershner and said, listen...
Look,
listen,
I'm going to hit you in the back of the head with a billy club if you don't do this.
We put in Ewoks early, so you're going to put them in this
Yeah,
bitch.
exactly.
There would have been Ewoks. I get it. But part of that tone difference was the
change in
directors, the change in storytelling.
Change in technology.
Advancements in technology. The fact that, so for the sequel trilogy, it's a lot of the same.
But we had people that were helming this movie, and this is the main problem that I have come to try and deal with, which maybe they're seeing it now and they're like, okay, we need to take better precautions to what's going on, is that I made this generalization to you before. Like Kevin Feige, who is like the executive producer of all the Marvel stuff, Marvel everything goes through him. He's the guy that's in charge, and like he's the one that makes most of the like large creative decisions on characters and development and where they go and what they do. Kathleen Kennedy is that person over in Lucasfilm, and I just felt that when they bought the rights to LucasArts in 2012, and then 2015 they had a movie come out, they're like, we got to get a movie. So they had a movie and they had a direction on where they wanted to go, and they wrote and directed that, and then it was great. Overall, like, I feel fans were like, it's a great movie, we're happy with it, we're happy to see Star Wars again. It was still kind of like a lot of the plot was a lot, episode 4-ish,
Yeah.
But like,
most of the plot.
But like we're on board. Like we're on board with what's happening. Cut to 8, I feel like creative direction changed because they got a different director who also wrote, and he had a vision for where he wanted the movie to go, and not necessarily keeping to the ideals of where the previous 7 movies had been. And he was like, I'm gonna throw a wrench in the gearworks and kind of like take you to a place that you didn't know you wanted to go, and you didn't think you would want to go. And it was I almost feel like it was a movie that was created for the sake of like we're turning things on its head just for the sake of turning some things on its head, not necessarily because that's where we naturally feel the chain of events are going to go, but like we're trying to give, like, people complained about 7 being so similar to 4. Well, this is going to be way different. And so like they make that huge turn, and then it kind of falls into this position of like where a lot of it was like 50-50. Some people loved Last Jedi and some people hated Last Jedi. And it turned into this, then when Rise of Skywalker came out, to 4 different groups where like they loved Last Jedi and they hated this movie, and then another group where they loved Last Jedi and they hated Rise of Skywalker, and they loved Rise of Skywalker. Or they hated The Last Jedi, loved Rise of Skywalker, or hated Last Jedi and hated Rise of Skywalker. So like 4 different people that like they kind of did this thing to, and like it, not necessarily that it was a bad thing to kind of turn some stuff on its ear, but like I don't know that they necessarily, like at the beginning when they were starting to film 7, they should have had 7, 8, and 9. At the beginning of 7, We know these characters. We know where this is. We want them to take this path, and at the end of 9, this is where everyone should be. Let's fill in the gaps. And I don't think that they did that from where they should have.
Now, here's a question.
I think things could have been more a bit smoother to go along, and just have a more finite path on which they could have taken. Now, it took the path that it did, which is okay, but I felt that I saw it in the filmmaking of where there were breaks in storyline just for the sake of breaking storyline stuff.
If it is your problem, well, I wouldn't say problem with 8, because I know you really liked 8 as a movie.
I liked 8 as a movie. The problem,
but does it stem with the Luke thing, or are there other stories? Because, and I'll tell you why I asked. Because for me, The Last Jedi followed a lot of the Empire Strikes Back plot. Straight down to the, hey, I want you to train me. No, I don't want to train you. Between Luke and Rey, the same kind of interaction that he had with Yoda. The once you do train, let me show you how you failed with the dark side that Luke had. And in the interim, you're having the Resistance being ever so slowly chased by the First Order, very similarly to how the Millennium Falcon was being chased down by the Empire throughout the other side of Empire Strikes Back. But I get that there were story beats in there that, like Vice Admiral Holdo, the fucking races that were like a lot of the side plot stuff. Benicio del Toro, for some reason, did not follow the original formula. So and that becomes my question. Is it like, I know you have a philosophical struggle with the direction that Luke Skywalker took in The Last Jedi specifically.
Yes. So and that's where most of it kind of ends up being, is that the whole thing that where Finn and Rose go to Canterbright and do their whole side mission thing was, I feel, as far as like trying to save the Resistance, it's a long shot, but like they're trying to do something. Vice Admiral Holdo's withholding information from, Poe was demoted. He's no longer a commander. Whatever. He's a captain, but he still like commands a lot of respect from the rest of the troops that they've got on the ship. Like, why are we hiding our plans? Like, let people, like, give people hope. Like, because right now all they know is that like they're on a transport and they're running out of fuel. Like, that's all that they know right now. So like, why are we going to take this? Give some people hope. Like, yeah, we've got a plan. It's in place. This is what we're going to do. Poe doesn't get what the plan is, so he makes his own actions to try and save everybody because he doesn't feel that Vice Admiral that whole plot of it, though it ended up not working out and kind of being useless and actually like
viciously not working
out, and it ended up causing like them to have the hacker Benicio del Toro like give them like, hey, you got ships that are probably trying to flee that thing going over to this planet over here, and then like the First Order taking notice of that and then causing some people to lose their lives. That's just storytelling. There's nothing necessarily overtly wrong with that, because there's also a similar plot of in episode 5. How different would it have turned out if Luke didn't go to Bespin to rescue them? Mm-hmm. Because Lando didn't know, like, they're setting a trap for someone named Skywalker, and like Luke, and he's like, yeah, what, blah blah blah. He still tries, like, they still are gonna freeze Han. Lando's still gonna try and break him out. The only caveat that might have been to that is that R2 is there, finds out that the hyperdrive is turned off, and then gets them to light speed. But like other than that, they might not have even had that kind of an issue, because if Lando broke them out, they might have been able to get off world and off planet, because they were gone.
Yeah.
Then they went back for Luke, and then that's when the TIE fighters caught up to them. So they might have been able to get out without having any kind of an issue, but like Luke was being brazen and like, I'm gonna win, like I can do this, he can see himself saving people.
Didn't you see me chop his head off in the tree?
And
it's gonna be the same thing, right?
He takes those actions, but like they ultimately end up being futile and end up just costing him his hand, his lightsaber, and a lot of other stuff.
Lightsaber.
So it's kind of like also like a parallel with that. Like if they didn't do this, stuff probably would have still worked out and probably worked out better. But like they took this action and this is what the result was. So like even then I don't have a problem with it. Some of the major problems that I had with the movie were like me and my wife call it the Disneyification of stuff, which is we introduced porgs. Now, like anyone who doesn't know, the porgs are actually like where they filmed Octo is Skellig Michael in Ireland. They filmed during like a nesting season. There's birds all over the place. So in order to counter that, they CG'd in porgs over the top of all of these nesting birds on this island, because they, by law, were not allowed to move them. So they were like, all right, well, we'll just make a space bird on top of it. Whatever. The porgs, like I felt Han would have been turning over in his grave if he wasn't atomized, was when Chewie's letting all these birds nest in the wires of the Falcon, like chewing on stuff and slamming up against the windshield. And I'm like, this is just Disney needing to sell a plush. Like that's, like to kids. Like that's what this is. Like we introduced an animal so that we can then sell a toy for it. And that's one thing.
Don't forget that the wires of the Millennium Falcon were being chewed on in Empire.
By Minox. But that was much less intentional. And that's, I would also argue, that's probably a less cute creature.
Yeah.
Considerably.
I wouldn't buy a Minoc plush.
Yeah?
I'd probably buy a Minoc, period, but not a plush.
Minox are available in Galaxy's Edge in the creature shop, the pet store, just so you know. That's a thing.
As a plush?
I don't think it's a plush. I think it's I think you put a battery in it and it flaps its wings and makes sound. Oh, it's a suction cup thing. It suctions up. It suction cups to the inside of your windshield.
Those weird hands that you used to throw and stick on the fucking wall.
They're like the Garfields for your car, though. You put them in the they suction cup on the inside of your car windshield.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So anyway,
I have to go to Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, well, neither of us have been yet. So that was one of the things that I had a problem with. There was a couple of points in acting where Rey deadpan says a line to Luke of like, we need you to come back to the Resistance because Kylo Ren has come very strong in the dark side of the Force and we need you to help us save the Resistance. I'm like, wow, is that the first take? Like, is that what, like, that's like, we're out of film for today. Like, we just say the line. She's not making any emotional inflection. She paid no attention to like, commas or periods or punctuation of any kind. She just deadpan says this line, staring off into the distance. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, what was this? So like, that was a thing. Like there's a couple of places where a couple of lines are like that, but like, I mean, Revenge of the Sith, that whole conversation between Padme and Anakin, like, was rough. But like, you forgive that a little bit because they're just people. And I like the direct,
not just the men. Anyway,
but like it was, I don't see how the chosen hero of the rebellion, who basically came in, blew up the Death Star, gave everyone enough time to evacuate off Echo Base, came back, have been told to have killed, the Emperor and Darth Vader, was part of the team that blew up the second Death Star, like saved, the free galaxy for all free peoples. Like that guy who then trained his sister to be a Jedi, then started an academy where he raised his nephew to be a Jedi, and then like made a mistake in what happened, like how that guy got to that point. Like okay, so I made a mistake here, and like your dad murdered a bunch of children, and like thought nothing of it, at the time. Oh, there's still good in him. I sense it. I'm like, yeah, probably, but like it's over layers of dead bodies. It's under a lot. So like you've got to get through a lot of stuff. Like he might be conflicted, but like he sees that in a really old man, and old men are hard to change their ways. Like really.
Trust me on that one.
And so through all of that, he wants to redeem like his father, and like everyone wants their divorced parents to get back together and everything to be happy. Like everyone wants that thing.
Jesus.
But like I know I'm going all kinds of different
fucking allegory.
Like everyone wants the perfect family and this, that, and
My dad killed my mom.
But he sees that, and then like he sees the possibility of where his nephew could go, and instead of like taking the time to kind of like work through that, like he's like, I'm gonna go murder this guy in the middle of the night. And then he's like, and just he made a mistake of activating his lightsaber, like standing over his nephew while he's sleeping. Like, yeah, but like then Kylo
I would have been like, yo, I'm just watching you sleep. It's dark. Back to sleep.
But like then he takes this turn, and like maybe we need to know more about their relationship, like Ben and Luke's. Maybe he was very like abrasive and against the training.
We also need to know what kind of strings, if it was just Snoke, or what kind of strings the
First Order
Palpatine was pulling in the background even then.
Yeah,
if he did pull the wool over his eyes, or
like if the First Order was recruiting, and like like there's a lot of stuff like that we need to know, because like what we've been given, I don't feel that guy that I know has done all of this prior would be like, I was responsible for making this decision standing over my nephew, and then like everything got destroyed. So like, you know what? He flips two birds to the entire universe, goes and finds a hole in the ground somewhere, like puts his X-Wing's wing up as a door, and like that's it. That's the end of it. Done. Like he just gives up, and that's where he is to die. Like it's so hard for me to buy that. Like it's so hard because there's no context for where it got, like how it got that. Like there's a little bit, but it's so hard for me to swallow that pill. Like that's where the whole thing hinges on, is like I've come to terms with a lot of the like general problems and walked through a lot of like other problems that I had with Last Jedi. But like overall, it was a movie that I enjoyed for the most part. I think Luke towards the end makes some of the best decisions that his character could have made given the circumstances. But it all hems from like, why would he make this decision at this point, which takes him down at this path? And that's like, I try and gather this whole thing of like, what he was talking about, of like trying to, like Rian Johnson had a whole thing where he was talking about how Luke's story is supposed to be that he doesn't believe that the Jedi are necessary for everyone to kind of like, work with, and they're supposed to like be in charge of everyone's laws, and they're supposed to be in charge of this and in charge of that, and like, because it's the same thing as like if you went down to the reality of having Greek gods be a real thing, and they come down and interact with the people, they're always going to go to these people, to the gods, to like look to see how they're supposed to govern their daily lives. And like, because they're real people that they can walk up to and like talk to and get advice from. They're the King Solomons and so on and so forth. These people are the ones that obviously should be in charge. They have all the power, and they're kind and gentle and this and that. Like Luke was trying to say that people need to go out and live their lives. They don't need to like worry about what the Jedi think and all these stories, whatever. The Jedi don't need to be a thing anymore. People need to live their lives, and if it ends up getting them killed, it ends up getting them killed. But like, that's why the Jedi need to end. And I'm like, okay, like I can kind of buy that, but like it all then comes back and teeters on like, why would he start this school and then like make this decision to try and like almost kill his nephew? Like it all comes back down to that for me of like, it doesn't, there's so much that just doesn't lock in. So still over this whole series, that's the one thing that I really have a problem with. It's not the Emperor coming back and how he came back or whatever. Like this is just in my head. My thought of how the Emperor came back is that there's stories in the Darth Vader comic about the Emperor would disappear for weeks at a time because he would go into wild space and then come back. And Darth Vader didn't know where he was going or what he was doing. He was probably trying to set up a cloning facility to like have clones of himself so that he could put himself into these like clones that he would have off on Exegol, and so that if he did die or was killed, he could move his consciousness into these bodies.
Probably.
So he was setting up and this is just in my head, like he's setting up this cloning facility. It's not quite done yet. His second Death Star blows up. His apprentice throws him down an elevator shaft where he explodes with force power, and he has nowhere to go except these empty husks that are on Exegol, but they're imperfect because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly, but like cloning a force sensitive is much more difficult than cloning a regular person.
For me, it's a lot simpler than that. This is a universe where using the force, you can do all sorts of weird shit. Uh-huh. So I'm comfortable as far as how the Emperor came back, as he just did. That's just what happened.
But I'm saying, like, I wanted to reason it out in my head the same way I reasoned out. Someone else reasoned out why Rey was just innately so good at everything. Like, there was a lot of complaints about Rey being a Mary Sue, which is a literary term for being someone who's just innately good at everything and is good and pure and perfect all the time, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I know we're starting to get
except for knowing who your parents are.
but the whole thing was like she's got all these force powers. She's able to face Kylo Ren in combat and win and what. And Kylo Ren's been training forever. I read something that said that Rey doesn't use a force power until Kylo Ren invades her mind and tries to make a connection in her mind through the force. And at that point, she's able to resist and fight back with him. But it's because at that moment, they become the dyad in the force. And Kylo Ren's not necessarily fighting Rey's abilities, but he's fighting his own abilities because they're sharing skills now. They've like his experiences and knowledge and training has become her knowledge and training. And that's why she's able to, and in these movies, and because I was always saying, I was like, we're going to have to see, because like the story's not over yet, we're going to have to see where stuff is going. And in 9, they kind of like, they give it the dyad and the force and this and that. I was like, makes sense. Perfect sense. Love it. Done. Accepted. Done. Like, I need a little bit of justification to take it to that next level so that I can understand. Because I will follow you down any course of action, any rabbit hole, whatever. Establish your universe, and this is how things work, and as long as you don't deviate from that, I'm good. You can either introduce new stuff down the line, but like as long as like, like everyone can have their own vampire mythos. This is the way vampires work in my universe. This is what they are. As you don't stray from that, I'm good. But like the second you're like, oh, because it's vampires and whatever, like it just happened. I'm like, now you're starting to lose me. So like, oh, it's magic. It's just a movie. Who cares? I'm like, no, I care. It's something that I've invested time, money, and effort into of like enjoying and participating. I've bought your goddamn plastic lightsabers. I want to know why this happened.
So this might be a good question for our viewers that are non-haters of Star Wars. So I want to have a conversation because
this is a long episode.
Well, you know what? To be honest, it's probably going to be a 2-parter.
We're going to split this? All right.
It's very likely. I don't know.
If we do, it's cool.
We'll figure it out. But I really want to know what you guys thought of the sequel trilogy Luke Skywalker plot arc. And do you have the same misgivings, or is there some way that you've reasoned it out where it makes sense how Luke got to that point? Let us know. You can leave a comment on the YouTube side. I'm not sure if you can leave a comment on the podcast side. So if you're listening to this on the podcast side, head over to YouTube, leave a comment there.
I think they can direct message you on the podcast side.
It's very possible. I haven't looked into it because I'm lazy. And I've got...
Or you could direct message us at I am Tatooine Hermit, even though I hate that planet. Like, I'm using it.
You don't hate the planet. You just don't see why it's so there.
Yeah,
all the time.
And my username is more of an homage to Obi-Wan. He's he's one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. Is Obi-Wan.
My favorite living character in Star Wars.
There's he died, didn't he?
Well, my favorite living being character, R2 being...
Oh, R2's... Yeah, okay.
My guy.
So I'm at Tatooine Hermit on Instagram. You can send me a message and then we can talk talking points or whatever.
I'm Zeus and letter N Jeff at Twitter. And same. Go ahead, send me a message or whatever. And if you leave a comment on the YouTube vid, we'll see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, that would be great. So it's this, and Star Wars is a thing. It's probably one of the most things I'm most passionate about in general. Just but like I'm passionate about a lot of things, and that's why I get kind of amped about this. If I said anything offensive, which I don't think I did, but probably.
No, you would offend me before you offended any of these fuckers out here.
We love you.
This is either part 2 or part 2 and 3, or part 2, 3, and 4.
We love our listeners.
Yeah,
they're all great.
I love you all, fuckers.
It's an endearing fuckers.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, this is probably going to be part 2 and 3 of our Star Wars 2019 debrief. And once again, the reason that we're doing this is because there was so much Star Wars in 2019.
Yeah, there's a lot
great.
of this.
There was so much Disney in 2019. Like so much Disney. Like
it's rare now for a Disney movie to not make $1 billion. Like if you look at everything that came out last year, everything made $1 billion or more.
That's impressive.
So it's like, oh, of course, like Lion King, Aladdin, Endgame, Star Wars, like everything made $1 billion. Like,
how about the second Maleficent movie? How much did that make?
I don't know.
We'll look that up.
Frozen 2 had made $1 billion.
Frozen 2 made $1 billion before opening night. Like that. That was gonna be my brother has 2 girls, and they started. The trailer started, and he instantly opened his wallet. Like he knew. He knew it was.
No,
gonna happen.
the trailer started, and then he felt his wallet disappear, and
like
he was.
Just
I'm like, I'm sitting lower in the seat now. What happened? What happened? This is gone through the Force. It went. It went away.
Like Frozen. If they did like a Frozen franchise, it would be the Star Wars for. I don't want to say young girls, because really it's like for young people in general. And when I say young, I mean like under 10.
Yeah.
Like you have to go see Frozen.
Mm-hmm. I just saw that movie in on December 8th or something like that.
I haven't seen it yet.
You've never seen it?
Is it worth watching?
It's not a bad movie.
Compared to the first one.
Oh, the second one. No, I just saw the first one.
Oh, you just saw the first one. Yeah,
The first
I have
one
2 nieces. I saw the first one many, many times.
So I saw the first one December 8th of 2019. Like I was like, I don't see why Let It Go was on the radio 13 times in a row, but I was like it was
because Elsa sang it and Idina Menzel is awesome. That's pretty much why.
But I was like, oh, this is a decent Disney movie.
If you were a 7-year-old girl and you had that same experience,
I liked the "Do You Want to Make a Snowman" song better. I like that song better.
Kristen Bell. If you have not watched The Good Place, go watch The Good Place. Good show. On that note, you have our socials. We've talked about Rise of Skywalker. We did a post-mortem on, that's such a horrible term, on the sequel trilogy and how it is awesome. It's awesome. If you say anything else, I'll, do bad things to you. And we asked for feedback. Check off all the how to be a podcaster things. Check.
Like and subscribe to End of the Species. Click the bell to get notifications when we post a new episode or video.
And all of that.
Yeah.
And so we will very likely see you again when we have another episode. We still have so much more Star Wars to go over, among other things. So we will see you next time for End of a Species. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Adam.
And we are outie. Nah. Let's do that again.
I don't own one of those yet.
No, fuck that. No, we could do that so much better. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Adam.